Hey guys, I hope you're doing good. I emerged from the darkness to give you an actual video, but I have to warn you here. This one is going to be a doozy. Lots of emotion, deep thought, it's gonna be the whole package. If that's too much for you, I'd give this a pass, but if you want to listen to something, even in the background, hope this fills your itch. Just saying this isn't going to be an especially exciting one. So why am I just now coming out with a video like this when it's just been speed paints and comic promos? As y'all know, we're halfway through the 2020 decade. God, I can't believe it either. It feels so long ago, but also it feels like last week. I think I left my brain back 5 years ago. I can't believe it. Anyway, no doubt we've all had our huge trials during this terrifying part of our lives. Heck, I'm still feeling the shock. We have to remember we're all in this together, and through it all, I think we can all agree we came out the other side differently. And at the same time, we've got to remember that it's not a competition over who had it worse, but I think now is a good time as any to share my experience, because it is a very, I want to say, formative part of my life, to say the least. So, feel free to indulge me. So, I graduated college in late 2019. I can only explain that time as pure torture. But if you want to hear that story, you can let me know. Anyway, it was a huge storm of stress I weathered through, and when it was all said and done, I said to myself, God, I'm finally done. I'm ready to go out into the real world, explore, make some friends, live my dream career, all the stuff I worked for. The whole ordeal had to be worth going through, but I realized it wasn't going to happen overnight. So in the meantime, I still needed a job. I still need to, make money. So I was working at this grocery store. I thought, whatever, this is temporary. It was a pain, but pain I can get through fine. I've been through worse. Then March 2020 rolled over, and I don't even have to tell you what was about to begin. I can at least tell you that it started off as a rumor until the news got louder and louder and louder. I didn't understand what was particularly going on, but I followed safety guidelines as everyone else said I should. Or should I say most? No joke. The first time I came into work with a mask on, my absolute tool of a manager told me to take it off. He said it was going to scare the customers. Yeah, I know. But anyway, I'm sure you know the rest, but I'm just sharing my experience. I can say that while you hear a lot of stories of folk who had to stay indoors the whole time, I didn't have that luxury. Yeah, I was an essential worker. Essential worker. I was what they called on the front lines. I, for the most part, grinned and bared it for a year. I stayed clean, kept my distance, all that jazz, you know it. My plan for safety while I was at the store was to work in the most out-of-the-way, leave-me-alone type of position there was in the building. And what was that? I worked in the bottle recycle room. I was in charge of cleaning the machines, mopping the floors, and switching out bins for the crushed cans. And all that would be fine if I didn't also have to make sure customers only came into the room 3 at a time, wearing their masks. I like to look for the good in most people, but it was a real challenge in this case. I encountered every possible flavor of depraved and selfish human you could possibly see on the streets. No joke. Ones that would just do anything not to wear their masks and keep their fellow shoppers safe. Not to mention myself, but I have to remind you this isn't a retail job rant. I'm just gonna move on from this point. The point is, every day I had to make sure I wasn't catching the big bug and taking it home to jump on my parents and sister. I think for the most part I managed to keep myself and everyone clean, but when it came to levels of stress, every time I would walk into the building, my heart would just immediately start racing. I was palpitating as I later learned. I had so much on my mind and mixed into a stew of noise and bobble sparks, whatever the word is. I reflected on the years before me. I graduated college right before that time. I was so ready to finally go out and live some freedom, just in time for me to crawl back into the shadows. I felt so robbed of a promising future. I was so blind to my path that I didn't even realize I spent 6 years in college compared to the conventional 4 years, because I was taking an additional associate's degree. That, on top of the uncertainty of my career, friends spreading out, still being alone, I feel like I'm missing an important part of my life, constantly putting my health on the line for a bunch of inconsiderate adults. Yeah, it was a lot, and it was piling up more and more. Then it came to a head, and I just wanted to let you know that this isn't a competition to see who had it worse. I'm just saying this is my unique perspective in the whole thing. Feel free to share your own. Anyway, I've always been prone to anxiety and panic attacks, but this one was a doozy, let me tell you. At around 4 in the morning, before work, I got up and started pacing the hallway, chanting to myself, I wasted my life. I wasted my life. Just hyperventilating, trying to get a grasp of air. My parents finally got up to try and calm me down. My dad tried to reassure me, saying, no, you didn't waste your life. It didn't go through all the way with me at the time because it dawned on me. I had to go back to work in a couple hours in this dingy grocery store, aka Cootie City. That day, I went in, I was breathing heavily, pacing back and forth. Even my head started throbbing. I would look for little corners to huddle my head up in to hopefully alleviate the noise happening inside. But I needed to talk to someone, just anyone. So, I found this manager, this young lady, little older than me. I tried to tell her the stuff I'm feeling behind closed doors, and I was scared of what I was gonna do next. I mean, she meant well. She was trying to calm me down and, reassured me and send me back to my position. Come around noon, the same manager escorted me to the store's boss. The guys started asking very intense questions about my mental health. And, next thing I knew, I turned my head and there were police officers. I jumped, saying, oh my god, not this. They told me that I'm not safe, and they need me to come with them to drive me to the hospital. I begged the boss to please not do this and that I had vacation tomorrow. But, he worked with me and said if I just went along with them, they'd let me go much earlier. So, I didn't fight it. I know, when they patted me down, they found my box cutter in my back pocket, and they asked, what were you gonna do with this? I don't know, man. Cut boxes? But anyway, they patted me down. I had my first ever drive in a cop car, and they escorted me to the emergency room. They had to watch me strip down and put on my robes or whatever. So I spent 4 hours in the middle of the hospital hallway, surrounded by all these COVID patients. I couldn't even get my own room, and I didn't even have a mask. I was just unprotected. So much was happening, so much noise. I had nothing to do for hours except listen to a little girl on a stretcher behind me, telling her mom that she's been hiding, let's say, weapons under a mattress. It was really nerve-wracking. Oh my god. This is the stuff that happens when no one's looking. I felt so humiliated. I called my mom to pick me up and we went home, just in time for me to start packing for vacation. Then, I was standing in place, just the stressful situation just suddenly dropped on me. I let out the most intense sobbing fit in my room that my mom had to comfort me about. That was the powder keg that finally bursts, the drop that finally tipped the bucket over. However you want to say it, and boy. Thank the Lord and ladies I had the vacation the next day, because I spent the whole week at Disney World being a slow, fidgety zombie. And let me tell you, not the best place to have a mental breakdown, but, it was better than sitting alone in the house for a week. They tried to have I tried to have fun, they're having their fun, but for the most part, I would slowly follow the group from behind. I did a lot of wistful pacing, and, I'm a pacer, but this was super extra. And I would ask my mom very just intense psychological questions, like, is there any point in, going forward? And is there going to be happiness? And up to the point where she, got really impatient and, told me, stop talking like that or we're driving home. Can't blame her. And, I had a moment when I was in a public pool. No one was around. I would rant to myself just how much of a waste of space I was. And that's just me being generous to myself. I even remember a moment where, we were at Animal Kingdom, looking through the gift shops, and I was putting on earphones and listening to, Depression Comfort ASMR. And can you believe that? I'm listening to people online trying to comfort me through panic attacks while Michael Mouse did his parades and fireworks shows. I tried to keep it together, try not to ruin everyone else's week, but, can you even imagine yourself doing any of this? Having a freaking existential breakdown in the middle of Disney of all places. God, I would wake up each morning feeling a sharp pain in the back of my chest. I could tell that this was where all my anxiety led up to, actual bodily pain. All in all, we try to go to the parks every few years or so, but in hindsight, this was definitely not my favorite to remember. So, we get back home, a couple days pass, I'm in the waiting room for the doctor, and the grocery store calls me back and asks if I'm coming into work. But, come on, did they really think I was gonna come back after that huge brouhaha? I just didn't have it in me. So, I told them no. They asked if I was quitting, and after a long pause, I said yes, and then they hung up. That was a real moment of revelation, if you ask me. I've always been such a loyal team player, whether I wanted to be or not, and that was the first real moment of independence, like free will that I expressed. I didn't realize I could simply just quit. It was a turning point, let me tell you. God. So, yeah, I was unemployed for the first time for about 5 months. I thought I could make the most out of that time, but in hindsight, yeah, I couldn't be more wrong. I just sank deeper and deeper into depression. I've never felt so low before. I couldn't get out of bed. When I tried walking, I got exhausted easily. I would call my distant relatives to try and calm me down. I couldn't eat. A few times I tried going out to places like the comic store or the coffee shop, and after like 20 minutes of being there, my head started buzzing just so hard I had to call someone to take me home. I had an addiction to calling helplines over and over just so I can cry on the phone. God, it's embarrassing. It's horrible. I thought, this, after years of obedience and, following what everyone thought was best for me, this is where my life led up to. I had no clear direction, no close friends, no relationship, just me. The scariest part is I didn't do anything horrible, at least not to anyone else, not to anyone but me. All I did was do what I was told. That's been my life up to then. School, work, parents. I didn't talk back. I relied on others for direction until one day it was all gone. No more guidelines, no more orders. I should be happy about that, but I felt like everyone in my life just kind of ran out of wisdom. All I had was the good old internet. I'm gonna tell you outright, you probably already know this, but depression and social media do not mix. I tried to make some friends online. When I got too emotional to handle, they would cut ties with me. Just like Tom Hanks losing his Wilson ball to the sea. The second they said, please leave me alone, I'm leaving, I just fell apart. I can at least say that put me off social media addiction to this day, because, I still use it, but I don't feel the addiction like I used to. If I'm on social media, it's for, productive reasons. So, there I was, laying around in bed, listening to the 600th mental health advice video, telling me to learn to be happy being alone. Because, clearly it's my problem. I'm just not being alone good enough. But anyway, you must be wondering what was finally able to get me out of this huge slum. I was only gonna sink in deeper and deeper. Well, there were a few things. My parents were begging me to get a new job because, they kind of described my behavior as being a spider never crawling out of his cave. I finally found a nice warehouse job. It paid well. It let me pick my hours however I want. I didn't think that kind of thing was even possible. And, it got me out of the house more often. It was an actual grind job that didn't make me want to feed my head to the lawnmower. I didn't even know those existed. When you eventually zone out doing your job, you start digging deep into your psyche. I was thinking, what was it that really mattered to me? Now that there's no more barriers, no more train tracks, I finally have more freedom than ever before. What is it that I truly wanted? It took me a long time, but I think I can finally piece it together. It's simple. I want freedom and love. Two things that an artist strives for. The ability to create any vision they want, not just from their hands, but their mind and heart. I think that's why we draw, why we play music, why we express ourselves. We all want to let our feelings out, unfiltered, We all want to be heard, to be seen. After years of just staying silent and invisible, I'm ready to finally be seen and heard. I finally feel like I have something to give, some wisdom, people might actually want to see the new and improved me. And, I'm working at it. It's super hard. I just want to say I'm working at it. Because I'm pretty confident that anything that comes my way is not going to be bad as the garbage I already went through. In a way, it was inevitable. When you're the quiet kid in the back of the room, rely on other people to do the talking for you. But one day, those people just kinda poof away and kinda left alone to figure out how to talk for yourself. You just feel like a loyal dog with no one to be loyal to. Top all that with the several years of therapy and exercise, and I feel like I'm at the top of my game. I want to finally move forward, to finally find people who care about me, because I already know what it's like to sink to the bottom, to just completely do nothing, and let me tell you, it's not fun, to say the least. I've gotten better practice at managing my mental process. I found that depressive thoughts tend to come around later in the day, so I'm sure not to take sunlight for granted. I got one of those, sunlight light bulbs to alleviate me during the late times I'm working. Don't get me wrong, it's still not easy. I still have my moments, but at the very least I know sooner or later they will come and pass. I know what I need to do to face them, who I need beside me, and what keeps me in good spirits. I stopped taking every piece of mental health social media junk I find as gospel, because most of it is not as true as you think. It's really easy to believe so, but soon you'll be able to form together your own brand of wisdom. And most people online aren't giving, because when you're in my position, you try and find anyone who has the special kind of guidance that you're looking for. Someone who reflects your life to a T, but after a while you kind of realize, no one has that exact. So what are you to do? I think, sooner or later you start building up your own mental confidence, You feel like you finally have something to give. I remember one time, a coworker at one of my older jobs, she was having a big panic attack, and my sister took me over because she could tell I had experience with it. And I forget exactly what it was, but I think I told her that be there for people and things that you care the most. Don't completely live your life on the 9 to 5, drown yourself in work. When you gotta work, you gotta work. At the same time, your life is happening right now. And looking back at that, I'm like, I can actually help people. And believe me, the uphill climb was and is so hard. Don't quote me there, don't get me wrong there. But I found that I just simply like trying. Like Judy Hopps. I like trying. I'm not a quitter. It's not fun to quit. That was often a con during the harder parts of my life, because no matter how much I hated my college program, I just never quit. But now I know for certain I can take that more as a quality. I feel like I'm finally ready to act like myself, unfiltered. What exactly that looks like, I have no idea, let me tell you. But I know for sure I'm not going back to how I was before. I guess the best way I can sum it up is when I went to the doctor after some depression medication. It's not a thing that changes my mindset. It's more something that calms me down, alleviates those nighttime thoughts. I was concerned. I told the doctor I was concerned because my heartbeat felt so faint and quiet. I was like, am I having a stroke? I asked my doctor about it, and she told me plain and simple that I was calm. No two ways about it. I'm just calm. Isn't that wild? I spent my whole life so used to my heart racing and pounding that I forgot what it felt like to be relaxed. Man, unbelievable. So, just saying, I'm no self-help guru, which I think puts me a step above most self-help gurus. But if you can get anything out of this, I hope it's that don't make compromises towards what you want and what you want to do. If you truly care about whatever that is, be it like music, animals, maybe simply working, your office job, because I'm not knocking that either. If you truly love something, you'll want to pursue it harder. But anyway, if you truly care about whatever it is, you'll be able to get back up from whatever hurdle you face, whatever comes your way. Whenever something hard comes by nowadays, I think to myself, God, this is nothing compared to handling grody customers in the middle of a pandemic until I crash out. After so many years of blind obedience, hoping things work out, having to take the wheel feels scary, but in a way it also feels liberating. I feel like I finally have some control over where I go. I see so many people out there that are just miserable where they are, and they don't even think about ways they can get out of it. But maybe someday they'll be able to find their way to somewhere better. I still have my anxiety, I still have my depressive episodes, the odd panic attack and crying fit. I still need mental health. But I guess now I can accept them more as part of me, just part of my nature. They're just alarms. And when alarms go off, then something is wrong, and you have to come over and fix it. So, for years to come, I have no clue what I have to face. Frankly, it's scary. I'm kind of afraid of looking forward because, I know it's going to be nothing like what I'm used to. But I think what's even scarier to me is letting nothing change. Just be in bed, just talking to the helpline until they have nothing to say to you anymore. I'm steering the boat now, and wherever I'm going, my goal is to make it a free and exciting ride as possible. I think being an artist is about, more than anything, freedom. Artists strive to be the most free people in the world, free to have imagination, free to, paint the world, colors, all that kind of. Thank y'all for listening. This has been a formative time for me, and I hope you got something out of it. Here's to the path ahead. See you later. Let's go be masters.